Ethan stood on the landing platform of his small exploration shuttle, staring at the strange planet before him. The sky glowed with a mix of green and purple streaks, and the wind carried a faint hum, as if the entire world was alive. He had traveled across light years to reach this place. Scientists had called it Virelia, a planet rumored to hold powerful artifacts from civilizations long gone. Ethan had always been curious, and curiosity had brought him here. The forest around the landing site shimmered with luminous leaves that seemed to react to movement. Strange creatures darted between the trees, glowing faintly in shades of blue and gold. The air smelled sweet but carried an electric tension, as if the planet itself was aware of his presence. Ethan felt a shiver of excitement. This was no ordinary mission. He double-checked his gear. His backpack was full of scanners, tools, and food supplies. His helmet was secure, and the small comm device on his wrist hummed with activity. Everything was ready. But still, he could not shake the feeling that someone, or something, was watching him. "Hello?" he called softly, his voice carried by the thin hum of the wind. There was no reply at first. Then, from the shadow of a glowing tree, a small figure appeared. She was unlike anything Ethan had seen before. Her skin shimmered faintly in greenish-gold tones, and her hair floated around her head as if weightless. Her eyes were large and deep, reflecting the strange sky above. She stepped forward carefully, and Ethan noticed her small hands tremble slightly. "I told you not to come here," the girl said in a clear voice. Strange, but somehow understandable. Ethan raised his brow. "Who are you?" he asked. "And why shouldn't I be here?" The girl's eyes narrowed. "I am Lyra. This place, it is dangerous. You should leave before it notices you." Ethan's curiosity burned stronger. "Noticed me? By what? I don't see anything dangerous out here. It's just a forest." Lyra shook her head quickly. "It is not just a forest. It watches. It learns. Those who enter the cave are tested, and most do not return." Ethan's heart beat faster. A cave? He had seen no cave. "Where is it?" he asked, a mix of caution and excitement in his voice. Lyra pointed to a faint glow in the distance, between two giant crystalline trees. "There! The cave hides itself, but it knows who comes. You must not go. Leave now." Ethan felt a surge of energy and curiosity. He had faced dangerous situations before, and he had always come out stronger. He stepped closer to the glow. "I appreciate your warning," he said politely, "but I cannot leave. I need to see it for myself. This could be the discovery of a lifetime." Lyra's face turned pale. She took a step forward, almost pleading. "Please, don't. Once you enter, it will judge you. It is not like any challenge you have faced. You could be trapped forever or worse." Ethan looked at her, then back at the glowing cave hidden among the forest. The air around it seemed to hum, almost calling to him. His hand itched to touch his scanner and see what it could detect. "I understand the risks," he said firmly, "but I must know. If there is knowledge here, I must find it." Lyra sighed and stepped back. "I cannot stop you, but remember my warning. You are not ready for everything inside." Ethan nodded once, respectfully, then walked toward the cave. With every step, the air seemed to grow warmer, and the lights in the forest glowed brighter. The creatures that had been darting through the trees paused, watching him silently. Even the wind seemed to slow, holding its breath. The cave entrance was a natural arch of crystalline rock, glowing softly from inside. Strange symbols shimmered faintly along the walls, moving as if alive. Ethan raised his scanner and felt a thrill when it beeped, detecting energy patterns unlike anything he had studied before. As he stepped closer, the light inside the cave seemed to reach out, wrapping around him like a gentle current. Ethan felt a mixture of fear and excitement. He remembered Lyra's warning, but he told himself it was just a child's imagination. Yet part of him wondered if she truly understood something he did not. He stepped inside. The world changed immediately. The cave was vast, far larger than it had appeared from outside. Crystalline walls glowed in green and blue patterns, shifting constantly as if alive. Strange motes of light floated in the air, moving around him, reacting to his movements. His scanner went wild, trying to measure the energy flowing through the cave, but it kept returning impossible readings. Ethan's heart raced. He had never seen anything like this. He moved carefully, placing his hand on the crystal walls. They pulsed softly under his touch, almost like a heartbeat. The cave seemed aware of him. Suddenly, the ground beneath him shifted slightly, not enough to make him fall, but enough to remind him that he was not alone. The glowing patterns on the walls twisted and formed shapes, almost like faces watching him. Ethan's excitement mixed with fear. He realized that Lyra had not been exaggerating. This cave was alive somehow, and it was aware of him. He heard a soft voice echoing in his mind. It was not his own voice, and yet it was gentle and distant. "Why have you come, human?" Ethan froze. I am here to learn, to explore," he said aloud, unsure if the cave could hear him, or if the voice was a trick of his mind. The voice responded, softer now, almost like a whisper in his thoughts. "Curiosity brings many here. Few leave. Will you be different?" Ethan swallowed hard. He had faced danger before, but this was different. This was not a natural hazard or a hostile creature. This was something ancient, intelligent, and powerful beyond his understanding. I will try," he said. "I want to understand. I want to know, not to take." The cave seemed to hum in approval. The walls glowed brighter, and a passage opened deeper inside, filled with shifting light. Ethan felt a pull, a need to follow, and he stepped forward, unsure of what he would find. Back at the cave entrance, Lyra watched silently. She could not enter the barrier, but she could feel Ethan's presence inside. Her heart ached with worry. She had warned him, but humans were stubborn, and Ethan was no exception. She whispered to the wind, hoping her words could reach him somehow. "Be careful," she said softly. "This place tests more than your courage. It tests your heart. Do not fail." Ethan did not hear her. He was already moving deeper, each step taking him further into a world of light and sound, energy and knowledge. The air shimmered around him, and he felt the cave observing every thought, every emotion. He remembered the explorers who had vanished here before. Legends spoke of humans who had never returned, or who had come back changed, unable to speak of what they had seen. Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine, but he pushed forward. This was his chance to prove himself, to discover what no one else had. Deeper inside, he saw the first signs of the cave's intelligence. Crystals began forming patterns, showing images of alien cities, forests, and skies. Strange beings moved through these visions, living and breathing, teaching and creating. Ethan realized these were memories, perhaps from the planet itself. A strange feeling came over him. He was not just exploring a cave, he was stepping into the history of a world, connected to something much larger than himself. The knowledge of countless generations seemed to flow toward him, asking him to understand, to respect, to learn. Ethan paused and took a deep breath. He had ignored the warning, but now he understood that curiosity alone was not enough. He needed wisdom. He needed patience. He needed to be ready for whatever came next. And he was determined to be. The cave pulsed with light around him, alive and aware. Ethan knew he had crossed a threshold, and there was no turning back. The real journey had just begun. Outside, Lyra waited, hoping that the human she had warned would survive the trials ahead. She could only watch and hope that Ethan's courage and heart were enough to face the cave's challenges. And somewhere deep within the glowing chamber, the cave seemed to acknowledge him, preparing to test him, ready to reveal secrets to the one who dared enter against the warning. Ethan moved deeper into the cave, each step sending tiny echoes through the glowing walls. The air inside shimmered with faint energy, and strange motes of light floated around him, drifting like fireflies. He had never experienced anything like this. His scanner beeped constantly, unable to make sense of the strange energy patterns. The readings were unlike any technology or natural phenomenon he had ever studied. The cave's glow seemed to respond to him. As he approached a cluster of crystalline pillars, the light shifted into colors he could not name, swirling around him like a living thing. Ethan felt a strange connection, almost as if the cave recognized his presence. He touched one of the pillars, and a faint vibration ran through his fingers like a heartbeat. "It's alive," he whispered to himself, astonished. Ethan continued forward, careful but curious. The passage widened into a massive chamber, its walls stretching high into the darkness. Light flowed along the floor in intricate patterns, forming symbols that moved and changed as he watched. His heart raced. He had entered a world unlike any other, a place where the rules of reality seemed different. He spotted a small pedestal in the center of the chamber, holding an orb of glowing crystal. Its light pulsed gently, almost like it was breathing. Ethan approached it, instinctively feeling that this orb was important. As he reached out, the crystal responded, brightening and sending a ripple of light across the floor. Suddenly, the cave trembled. Ethan stumbled but did not fall. The lights around him swirled faster, forming shapes he could barely comprehend. Shadows and colors twisted together, and a voice echoed softly in his mind. "Who comes here?" Ethan froze. The voice was not spoken aloud, yet he understood it clearly. It was calm, powerful, and aware, like a living consciousness speaking directly to him. I am Ethan," he said aloud, his voice trembling slightly. "I came to explore, to learn." The voice paused, then seemed to fill the chamber with warmth. "Curiosity is common. Few come with purpose. Many come with greed, with fear, with arrogance. Why do you come?" Ethan thought for a moment, his pulse quickening. He realized that this was no ordinary cave, no simple obstacle. It was intelligent, aware of his thoughts and intentions. He swallowed hard. "I want to understand," he said carefully. "I want to learn, not to take. I want knowledge to help, not to harm." The cave seemed to hum in response. Light spread from the orb, forming moving images in the air. Ethan watched, amazed, as they showed entire cities, forests, and skies of a civilization long gone. Strange beings moved within these visions, building, teaching, and exploring. Ethan realized he was witnessing the history of a world, recorded in the very walls of the cave. As he stepped closer, a sudden vibration ran through the floor. Crystals along the walls glowed brightly, forming a tunnel of light ahead. Ethan felt a pull, a subtle but irresistible urge to follow. He understood that the cave wanted him to proceed, to explore further, to learn more. Lyra, far outside the cave, sensed the disturbance. She could not enter the barrier, but she felt the energy change as Ethan moved deeper. Her eyes widened with worry. She had warned him, but humans often ignored caution. She whispered to the wind again, hoping somehow her warning could reach him. Inside, Ethan entered a new chamber. This one was larger than the first, filled with floating crystal formations that emitted soft hums. Strange symbols rotated around the room, forming patterns in midair. He realized that the cave itself was alive, not in the way creatures lived, but as an intelligence that observed, learned, and reacted. As he explored, Ethan's scanner beeped frantically. The readings were too strong, too complex to measure. Energy flowed through the cave like a river, and it seemed to respond to his emotions, pulsing brighter when he felt excitement, dimming when he hesitated. Suddenly, one of the floating crystals shifted toward him. It hovered near his hand, and images flashed through his mind. He saw visions of humans arriving on this planet long ago, explorers like himself, some lost, some changed forever. He saw alien beings guiding and observing them, recording their actions. The cave was a witness, a guardian of knowledge, and now it was testing him. Ethan took a deep breath. He understood that curiosity alone would not be enough. He needed wisdom, patience, and respect. He had come seeking knowledge, but now he realized that the cave demanded more. It demanded understanding, compassion, and courage. As he moved forward, the cave responded to his presence. The floating lights arranged themselves into a path, leading him to a chamber filled with intricate devices he could not comprehend. They glowed and shifted as he approached. The air pulsed with energy, and Ethan felt a strange pressure on his mind, like the cave was communicating with him directly. Images appeared in his vision. He saw the history of the planet, its civilizations rising and falling. He saw beings who had tried to take the knowledge for themselves and were punished. He saw others who had respected the cave and were granted insight. The message was clear. The cave rewarded those who approached with the right intentions. Ethan stepped closer to one of the devices. As he touched it, the chamber trembled again and light wrapped around him. He felt a connection, as if the cave was reading his thoughts, his feelings, and his intentions. He understood that every choice mattered, every hesitation, every act of curiosity could influence what would happen next. Then, without warning, the chamber shifted. Walls rotated, floors moved, and crystals formed new patterns, creating a maze. Ethan realized the cave was testing him. It was alive, aware, and it wanted to see how he would react. He took a deep breath and focused. He did not panic. He analyzed the patterns, studying the movements of the crystals and the light. Slowly, carefully, he navigated through the shifting maze. The cave responded to his patience and understanding, creating pathways rather than obstacles when he moved thoughtfully. Lyra watched from outside, her worry growing but mixed with hope. She sensed that Ethan was proving himself, that he was learning the lessons the cave had to offer. She whispered encouragement, though he could not hear her. "Be careful, Ethan. Let your heart guide you." Hours passed, or perhaps only minutes. Time seemed strange inside the cave. Ethan finally reached the center of the maze, a place filled with floating crystal shards, each glowing with knowledge. The shards moved gently, forming images of stars, planets, and strange symbols. He realized that the cave was offering him a glimpse of the universe, its knowledge stored in these delicate crystals. He reached out to touch one. The moment his fingers brushed the surface, light enveloped him, and he felt a surge of understanding. He saw patterns of life, energy, and intelligence. He felt the history of the planet, the wisdom of its people, and the lessons learned over countless generations. Ethan's mind raced with excitement. He had never felt anything like this. The knowledge was overwhelming, yet it was not chaotic. It flowed like a river, and he could feel it guiding him, teaching him, revealing what he needed to know without forcing him. Then the voice returned, softer and calmer. "You seek knowledge. You wish to understand. Will you use it wisely?" Ethan nodded, even though he was unsure if the cave could see the gesture. "Yes," he said. "I will use it to help, to learn, not to take for myself." The cave pulsed in approval. The floating crystals glowed brighter, forming a path to the next chamber. Ethan realized that his journey had only begun. The cave had awakened something inside him, a sense of purpose, a desire to learn not for power, but for understanding. As he prepared to step forward, he felt the first real connection with Lyra. Though she was outside the barrier, he sensed her presence, her hope, and her trust. Her warning had been true, but now he understood why she had tried to guide him. He was not alone, even in this alien place. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling both excitement and humility. The cave had shown him wonders beyond imagination, but it had also reminded him of the responsibility that came with knowledge. He was not merely an explorer now. He was a student of a living world, a participant in its story. And as he moved toward the glowing path ahead, he knew that whatever challenges came next, he would face them with respect, courage, and an open heart. The cave had awakened something inside him, and he was ready to continue the journey, guided by curiosity, wisdom, and the silent presence of the girl who had warned him. The real test, he realized, had only just begun. Ethan followed the glowing path deeper into the cave. Each step felt like walking through a living dream. The walls shifted subtly around him, the crystals pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. He realized the cave was not just showing knowledge, it was testing him. Every movement, every thought seemed to influence what lay ahead. The path opened into a vast chamber, larger than anything Ethan had imagined. The ceiling arched high above, covered in glittering crystal formations that reflected his own image. But the reflections were strange. They did not always match his movements. Sometimes he saw versions of himself that looked unsure, fearful, or greedy. Other times, he saw versions that were brave, wise, and kind. A soft voice filled the chamber. "Choose who you are, human. Will your heart guide you, or will your desires?" Ethan froze. He had expected challenges, but not this. His very self was being questioned. He studied the reflections, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. He had to prove that he could act with wisdom and compassion, not only for the cave, but for the future he wanted to protect. As he stepped forward, the reflections shifted again, forming a corridor of illusions. Shadows of treasure, glowing artifacts, and advanced technology appeared before him. They tempted him, offering the rewards he had always dreamed of. His heart quickened. For a moment he felt the pull of desire, the chance to claim knowledge and power for himself. He shook his head and spoke aloud. "I did not come here for myself. I want to understand, to help, not to take." The illusions flickered, testing him further. Now he saw people in need, worlds in danger, and civilizations on the brink of collapse. Each vision showed him how knowledge could be used to harm if chosen poorly. He realized the cave wanted him to understand responsibility, not just curiosity. Suddenly, the chamber split into multiple paths, each one glowing differently. One path shone with gold and fire, tempting him with wealth. Another glimmered with shadow, offering secrecy and forbidden knowledge. A third path glowed softly in blue and green, peaceful but mysterious. Ethan paused, taking a deep breath. He closed his eyes and thought about why he was here. The answer was clear. He wanted knowledge, yes, but not for personal gain. He wanted to learn and to protect. He opened his eyes and chose the soft blue-green path, feeling the cave recognize his decision. The path led him to a circular chamber, its walls covered in floating symbols that rotated and shimmered in the air. The symbols pulsed gently as Ethan approached. He realized they formed a complex puzzle, combining logic, creativity, and empathy. It was a challenge unlike any he had faced before. He knelt to study the symbols, tracing patterns with his fingers. Some symbols shifted when touched, reacting to his thoughts. Others required careful observation and patience. Ethan's mind raced, connecting shapes and meanings, drawing upon both human logic and instinct. Time seemed to stretch. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Ethan did not know. He focused on the puzzle, ignoring fatigue, hunger, and fear. The cave observed silently, testing not only his intellect but his persistence and character. At one point, the puzzle seemed impossible. A series of symbols glowed and spun rapidly, confusing him. He felt frustration rising but forced himself to stay calm. He closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and let his intuition guide him. Slowly, the symbols began to align, forming patterns that made sense. He realized the cave was teaching him to balance reason with instinct, logic with empathy. Lyra, outside the cave, sensed the shift in energy. She felt relief but did not move closer. She had warned him, but now Ethan was proving that he could face the cave's challenges. She whispered encouragement into the wind, hoping her words could reach him somehow. As the puzzle completed, a soft hum filled the chamber. The floor beneath Ethan glowed, revealing a circular platform. The crystals lifted slightly, forming a gentle staircase upward. Light flowed along the steps, guiding him to a new area of the cave. Ethan ascended carefully, aware that each step was a test of patience and humility. He had come for discovery, but the cave had taught him that wisdom and understanding mattered more than curiosity or ambition. At the top, he entered a chamber filled with floating orbs of light, each one representing a different aspect of knowledge. Some glowed with images of planets, stars, and civilizations. Others shone with abstract energy patterns, almost like thoughts made visible. Ethan realized he was seeing the full spectrum of understanding the cave could offer. One orb floated toward him, larger and brighter than the others. As he reached out, it pulsed gently, as if waiting for him to decide how he would use the knowledge. Ethan placed his hand on the orb and felt a surge of energy flow through him. He saw visions of potential futures, some bright and full of hope, others dark and full of conflict. He understood that the cave was showing him the consequences of his choices. Knowledge was not a gift without responsibility. How he acted would shape not only his fate, but the fate of those who would benefit from it. A voice echoed in the chamber, calm and firm. Will you carry this knowledge with wisdom, or will you seek only what serves yourself? Ethan thought carefully. He had felt temptation, fear, and doubt, but now he knew his purpose. I will carry it wisely, he said aloud. I will use it to help, to protect, to learn. I will not seek it for myself alone. The orb glowed brighter, and the chamber seemed to respond with warmth and light. The cave had accepted his choice. The test was not over, but he had proven that he could act with integrity. Suddenly the chamber shifted again. A series of moving platforms appeared, suspended over a glowing pit of energy. Each platform was covered with symbols, similar to those in the puzzle below. Ethan realized that he would have to navigate them carefully, combining balance, speed, and insight. He stepped onto the first platform. It floated steadily, responding to his weight. As he moved forward, the platform shifted slightly, testing his focus and awareness. Some symbols on the platforms glowed, giving clues about the next step. Others dimmed, tempting him to rush and fail. Ethan focused, moving deliberately and calmly. He remembered the lessons of the puzzle: patience, observation, and intuition. Each step required him to think ahead, anticipate the movements, and trust his instincts. The cave seemed to guide him, rewarding careful choices and correcting missteps. Halfway across, one platform wobbled dangerously. Ethan felt a surge of fear, but did not panic. He adjusted his stance, breathed deeply, and stepped carefully to the next platform. The cave pulsed with light, acknowledging his courage and composure. Finally, he reached the final platform. The glowing pit of energy below was calm now, as if satisfied with his journey. A path opened ahead, leading to another chamber filled with soft, pulsating light. Ethan stepped forward, feeling a sense of accomplishment and humility. He realized that the cave's tests were not only about intelligence or skill. They were about character. Courage, patience, empathy, and wisdom mattered more than speed, strength, or ambition. The cave was shaping him, preparing him for the knowledge and challenges that lay ahead. Lyra, outside the cave, felt the energy shift once more. She smiled softly, her hope renewed. Ethan was learning, and that gave her faith that he could face whatever the cave had in store. Ethan paused in the glowing chamber, taking a moment to reflect. He had faced illusions, temptations, puzzles, and physical challenges. Each test had pushed him to think carefully and act wisely. He understood that the cave was alive, not just in energy, but in intelligence, and it had chosen to teach, not destroy. As he looked at the path ahead, he felt a mixture of excitement and respect. The cave was vast, its knowledge immense, and he was only beginning to understand its depths. But he was ready. He would face the next challenges with courage, curiosity, and integrity. And somewhere deep inside, he felt the presence of the girl who had warned him. Lyra's voice, though distant, seemed to guide him, reminding him that trust, friendship, and understanding were just as important as bravery and knowledge. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped forward, into the next chamber. The cave responded, pulsing with light and energy, acknowledging his progress. He was not merely an explorer now. He was a student of the cave, learning lessons that would shape him forever. The real test was far from over, but Ethan felt ready. With patience, courage, and an open heart, he would face whatever came next. The cave had awakened something inside him, a determination to learn, to understand, and to grow. And the journey, he realized, had only just begun. Ethan stepped into a new chamber, unlike anything he had seen before. The ceiling stretched far above him, dotted with crystals that glowed like distant stars. The walls were covered in intricate patterns of light, moving in waves that seemed alive. He could feel the energy here pulsing stronger, as if the cave itself had been waiting for him to reach this place. The path ahead was clear, a bridge of glowing light stretching across a vast chasm of swirling energy. Ethan hesitated for a moment, gazing into the depth below. The chasm seemed endless, filled with floating lights that formed shapes of distant galaxies and alien worlds. His heart raced with awe. This is incredible," he whispered to himself. A soft voice echoed through the chamber, calm and powerful. "You have come far, human. Few make it this far. Few are willing to learn, to understand, to respect." Ethan took a deep breath. "I am ready," he said. "I want to understand everything you wish to teach." The voice pulsed like the heartbeat of the cave itself. "Then see, and know the truth of this place." Before him, a massive orb of pure light floated above a pedestal. Its glow was brighter than anything Ethan had seen in the cave so far, and it seemed to hold the knowledge of entire civilizations within it. He stepped closer, feeling the energy radiating from it. The air hummed with power, and the walls shimmered in response to his presence. As he reached out, the orb responded. Images formed in the air around him. Vast cities, floating forests, oceans of crystal, and beings moving with grace and intelligence. Ethan realized he was seeing not only the history of this planet, but the knowledge of civilizations across the stars. The cave had preserved it all, waiting for those who could handle its lessons. A vision appeared showing a planet much like Earth. Humans were there, exploring, learning, creating. Ethan recognized the possibilities of what humanity could achieve with wisdom and knowledge. But the vision also showed the consequences of greed, arrogance, and carelessness, destruction, suffering, and loss. The cave spoke again, its voice resonating with both power and patience. "This knowledge is not a gift without responsibility. It is a test. Will you use it wisely for the benefit of many, or will you take it for yourself alone? Ethan felt the weight of the question. He had come here seeking knowledge, yes, but now he understood that the purpose of the cave was far greater. It was not about discovery alone, it was about the character of those who wielded knowledge. He thought of Lyra, waiting outside the cave, and of the warning she had given him. He remembered the illusions he had faced, the temptations, and the tests of patience and courage. He realized that the cave had been teaching him all along, guiding him to understand not only the past, but the future. "I will use it to help, not to harm," Ethan said aloud, placing both hands on the glowing orb. "I will share it responsibly, with care, and with respect for life." The chamber responded instantly. Light flowed from the orb, spreading through the entire space. The energy seemed to embrace him, filling his mind with understanding. He saw patterns of life and intelligence across galaxies, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the ways knowledge could bring growth or destruction. Ethan felt overwhelmed, but focused. He could feel the power of the cave guiding him, not forcing him. It was a teacher, a guardian, and now, in a sense, a companion on his journey. Suddenly, the orb projected a new vision. It showed humans on distant planets, working together with alien civilizations to explore, learn, and create. He saw technologies that could heal, innovations that could improve life, and discoveries that could expand understanding across the stars. He realized the cave's purpose was to test those who could handle such knowledge responsibly, preparing them to shape the future. Lyra, outside, felt a subtle change in the energy surrounding the cave. She sensed that Ethan had reached the heart of the challenge. Relief and pride filled her as she realized that the human she had warned was proving himself capable of understanding and respect. Ethan's mind raced with questions and insights. He understood that the cave had preserved knowledge not only for curiosity, but for those who could guide it toward good. He realized the artifact he had sought was not a physical object, but wisdom, insight, and the responsibility to act wisely. The voice spoke again, gentle but commanding. "You have learned, human. You have faced temptation, patience, courage, and understanding. The knowledge you hold is vast. Will you carry it with honor, or will it consume you?" Ethan closed his eyes, thinking deeply. He had faced illusions of wealth, power, and fear. He had solved puzzles, navigated dangers, and learned lessons from the cave itself. Now, holding this knowledge, he knew what he must do. "I will carry it with honor," he said firmly. "I will share it only with those who will respect it, and I will use it to help life, to guide humanity toward understanding and growth." The cave pulsed with approval. Light flowed from the orb, wrapping around Ethan, lifting him slightly as if affirming his choice. He felt a connection to the energy of the planet, to the civilizations that had come before, and to the potential of those who would follow. Images swirled around him, scenes of cooperation, innovation, and peaceful exploration. He saw humans and aliens working together, learning from one another, sharing wisdom, and protecting knowledge. The vision inspired hope in his heart. Then the chamber shifted. The glowing bridge reappeared, leading him back toward the entrance. The cave was opening the way, recognizing that he had learned what it intended to teach. Ethan understood that the tests were not finished, but he had passed the most important ones. He had proven his character. As he stepped onto the bridge, he felt a calm strength within him. The cave had awakened something profound, a sense of responsibility, a desire to guide knowledge wisely, and a recognition of the importance of empathy and courage. He had grown, not only as an explorer, but as a human capable of understanding truths far beyond his previous imagination. Lyra watched the light shift from within the cave. She sensed Ethan's progress, feeling both relief and admiration. The boy she had warned had faced the cave's challenges and learned from them. He had proven that humanity could rise to the standards of wisdom and care that the cave demanded. Ethan continued along the bridge, each step steady and purposeful. He thought about what he had learned, the visions he had seen, and the responsibility now in his hands. The cave had tested him in every way, intellectually, emotionally, and morally, and he had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to face the next part of his journey. At the end of the bridge, he paused. The chasm of swirling energy stretched below him, but he no longer felt fear. He felt respect, understanding, and connection. The cave had shown him not only the power of knowledge, but the importance of how it was used. He looked back at the glowing orb, and for a moment he felt gratitude. It had tested him, guided him, and awakened something within him. The lessons would stay with him forever. As he stepped back toward the exit, he saw the faint glow of the forest beyond the cave. The path to Lyra was clear now, and he knew he had grown in ways that no other human explorer had before. He had faced the heart of the cave, understood its purpose, and emerged with the wisdom to act responsibly. Lyra stepped closer to the entrance, though the barrier still held her back. She could feel Ethan's presence, his calm strength, and the glow of the knowledge he now carried. She whispered softly, "You have learned well. May your choices guide others as you have guided yourself." Ethan smiled, even though she could not see him. He felt the connection between them, a shared understanding of trust, courage, and respect. The cave had tested him, but it had also shown him the value of guidance, friendship, and wisdom. He took a deep breath and prepared to leave the cave. The next step of his journey would take him back to the surface, back to the forest, and eventually back to his people. But he knew that he would carry the lessons of the cave with him forever. The orb pulsed one last time, a soft glow filling the chamber. Ethan understood that the cave had given him a gift, the knowledge of civilizations, the insight into responsibility, and the understanding that wisdom and compassion must guide every choice. And as he stepped toward the exit, he felt ready. He had faced the tests, proven his character, and received the revelations the cave had to offer. He was no longer just a curious explorer. He was a human capable of understanding, learning, and acting with care. The journey ahead would still hold challenges. But Ethan was prepared. The cave had awakened the best in him, and he was determined to use it to help others, to guide knowledge responsibly, and to honor the trust of the alien girl who had warned him. Outside, the forest shimmered with life. Lyra watched silently, knowing that the human who had entered against her warning had returned changed, wiser, and ready to face whatever came next. The real adventure, Ethan realized, was only beginning. Ethan stepped out of the glowing cave, blinking as his eyes adjusted to the forest beyond. The luminous trees shimmered in shades of green and gold, their leaves reflecting the fading light of the cave. The air smelled sweet and clean, carrying the faint hum of the planet's energy. After all he had experienced inside, the outside world felt calm yet alive, as if the forest itself acknowledged his survival and success. He paused, taking a deep breath. The lessons of the cave echoed in his mind: courage, patience, empathy, and wisdom. The knowledge he had gained was immense, not just about alien civilizations, but about choices, responsibility, and the future. He knew that how he used this knowledge would matter far more than what he had learned. Lyra appeared from the edge of the forest, stepping carefully toward him. She had watched everything from outside the barrier, her heart racing with hope and worry. Now, seeing him emerge unharmed and changed, she felt relief mixed with admiration. "You made it," she said softly. Her voice carried emotion, pride, and caution all at once. "I did not think that anyone could pass the cave's tests so completely. Ethan smiled, though he was still catching his breath. It was more than a test, he said. It showed me what knowledge really means. Not just discovery, but responsibility. Not just power, but care. Lyra nodded. That is why I warned you. Few understand what the cave demands. Many enter with greed or curiosity alone, and they never return. But you learned. Ethan looked toward the glowing trees, feeling a connection to the planet, to the cave, and to Lyra. I understand now, he said. I will carry what I learned carefully. I will not misuse it. I will share it only with those who can honor it, who can learn without causing harm. Lyra's eyes glimmered with hope. Then the world may change for the better. Humans and others, together. But the journey is not finished. You must decide how to carry this knowledge forward. Ethan nodded slowly. The weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders, yet it did not feel heavy. Instead, it gave him purpose. The cave had awakened a part of him he had not known before, a desire to guide, protect, and inspire. He realized that his journey was not just about exploration, but about using wisdom to make a difference. Together, Ethan and Lyra walked through the forest, moving toward his shuttle. The path shimmered faintly beneath their feet, responding to their presence. Small creatures peeked from behind luminous plants, watching them silently. Ethan felt a sense of harmony with the world around him, a reminder of why knowledge must always be paired with respect. As they approached the landing site, Ethan paused and looked at Lyra. I wish I could learn more from you, about your people, your world, he said. There is so much I do not understand yet. Lyra smiled softly. And you will, she said. But knowledge grows best with patience. You have learned the cave's lessons. Now you will learn from the world and those around you, humans and aliens alike. Trust, friendship, and cooperation are just as important as wisdom. Ethan nodded, feeling the truth in her words. He realized that discovery alone was not enough. Understanding and empathy were what made knowledge meaningful. He reached his shuttle and began preparing it for departure. The engines hummed as he checked the systems, but his thoughts remained on the cave, Lyra, and the vision of what the future could become. The knowledge he carried was powerful, but it was not dangerous if used wisely. He had learned that lessons mattered more than raw information, that choices defined outcomes more than ability alone. Lyra watched silently. She knew she could not accompany him beyond the planet, but her presence had guided him through the trials. She had warned him, supported him, and now witnessed the result. A human who had grown beyond mere curiosity. A human who had earned the trust of the cave itself. Before boarding the shuttle, Ethan turned to her. Thank you, he said. Your warning and your hope guided me more than you know. Lyra nodded, a faint smile on her lips. Remember, Ethan, knowledge is a gift and a responsibility. Use it to guide, not to take. Protect it, and it will protect you in return. Ethan stepped into the shuttle and secured himself. He took one last look at the forest, at the glowing cave behind him, and at Lyra, standing quietly among the luminous trees. A sense of peace settled over him. He had faced the unknown, confronted his fears, resisted temptation, and proven his character. He had grown, and he knew the journey ahead would be full of new challenges, but he was ready. The engines roared to life, and the shuttle lifted smoothly from the landing platform. Ethan watched the planet shrink below him, the green and purple sky blending with the shimmer of the forests and crystal formations. The cave remained faintly visible, its glow pulsing gently, a silent reminder of the lessons he had learned and the knowledge he now carried. As he entered orbit, Ethan accessed the data he had recorded, reviewing the visions and insights granted by the cave. The knowledge was immense, but he approached it with care, organizing it, understanding its context, and planning how to share it responsibly. He felt the weight of responsibility, yet it was balanced by a newfound clarity. The future could be better if guided wisely. Lyra's voice echoed softly in his memory, a reminder that guidance, trust, and friendship were as important as wisdom. He realized that humanity's future depended not only on exploration and discovery, but also on understanding, cooperation, and compassion. Ethan's shuttle prepared for the journey back to his homeworld. He reflected on the tests, the illusions, the puzzles, and the visions. Every step had taught him something vital. Knowledge without wisdom could harm, curiosity without care could destroy, and courage without compassion could mislead. He had passed the cave's trials because he had balanced all these qualities, proving that humanity could rise to the challenges of the universe. As he traveled through space, Ethan allowed himself a moment of hope. The universe was vast, filled with civilizations, wonders, and mysteries. Yet he now carried the understanding that exploration was more than discovery. It was about responsibility, morality, and care. He was not just a traveler or a seeker, he was a guardian of knowledge, a guide for the future. He imagined the possibilities, humans and alien civilizations working together, sharing wisdom, learning from one another, and building a better future. The visions of the cave were clear now, and he understood that his choices would shape outcomes far beyond his own lifetime. Finally, Ethan looked at the stars, feeling a quiet determination. He had entered the cave against a warning, faced its challenges, and emerged wiser. The journey had tested his heart, mind, and spirit, and he had succeeded. Now, he would take what he had learned and ensure it would be used for good. Lyra, back on the planet, watched the shuttle disappear into the sky. She felt hope, knowing that the human she had warned would carry the lessons responsibly. The cave had judged him, and he had proven worthy. The future of exploration, discovery, and cooperation was brighter because of him. Ethan's shuttle continued through the galaxy, carrying him and the knowledge he had earned. He knew that challenges would come, that temptations and dangers awaited, but he was ready. The cave had awakened his courage, his wisdom, and his compassion. He would face whatever lay ahead with a heart open to understanding, a mind ready to learn, and a spirit committed to helping others. And so, Ethan's journey continued, not just as a human explorer seeking artifacts or knowledge, but as a guide, a learner, and a protector. The universe was vast and mysterious, but he was prepared to meet it with respect, courage, and hope. The cave's glow faded behind him, yet its lessons remained. He would carry them always, shaping his choices and actions, inspiring others, and proving that humanity could rise to the challenges of the cosmos with wisdom, empathy, and determination. The adventure was far from over, but Ethan had passed the greatest test. He had learned the meaning of responsibility, the value of knowledge, and the importance of heart. And with that, he looked forward to the future, bright, vast, and full of possibilities.